Nice to meet you. Thank you for taking some time to speak with me and share a bit about yourself and your story with our ripened readers. Really appreciate it. In your presentation today, so
Yes.
in as you were talking about, you mentioned the need for community, and that need led you to move from California to Tennessee. So I have a twofold question for you.
Sure.
So, was there a pivotal point that brought you to that point where you said we need to move? And the second part of that question is, did you find your community?
I don't know if there was one pivotal moment that made me realize. I think it was we've been building out the homestead and putting fencing up, bringing home the animals. And when it came time to really think about who we were going to depend on, because in the country, as I was saying, in the country, you do need to depend on one another. I can't buy all of the tractor pieces. I don't need to have a backhoe all the time, but it would be great to have the ability to borrow from a neighbor, for example. So it was, it was from that experience, and then also realizing that we need to depend on one another. And also interest rates were going to rise,
Yes.
and I do lending. So I knew in 2022 in January that if we were going to move out of California, we were going to need to do it within a matter of weeks.
Okay.
And that was really the impetus, that was the push to say, if we were ever going to move out of California, we need to do it now.
There's urgency there.
And because of that ability to see the interest rates rising, we were able to catch it while we were still in the low twos.
Okay, wow.
And now it's 7.5,
Yes,
almost
yes.
climbing to 8% right now, which would have made it impossible for us to move.
And what about the community now that you moved into? You mind sharing a little bit about what you discovered and found?
Yeah, so when we were looking for communities, we were specifically looking for Christian homesteading, homeschooling communities.
Okay.
And we were targeting Texas, Oklahoma, and Tennessee. The community that we're in, we actually interviewed the sheriff as well.
Oh, wow.
We
Did your homework.
we did our homework. Yeah, we had 48 hours in East Tennessee.
Okay.
And I set up a luncheon, and I met with 12 families that were new transplants to the area. And I wanted to understand where they stood on certain things that were going on.
Are you a data researcher? You must have had a spreadsheet
I
there.
work in spreadsheets. Yes, I do. I work in spreadsheets. So I was literally going down the line and asking each one of them,
Oh, wow.
where do you stand on this? Where do you stand on this? And if this were to happen again, what would your response be?
Yes.
And we just went down the line for 12 different families. And then my husband interviewed the sheriff. There was an off-market property, and within 48 hours, we were in contract.
Wow.
But it was all God.
Yes.
My husband and I are born and raised in the Bay Area.
Uh-huh.
That's all we know. All of our family and friends are in California. We didn't know anybody out here, but after gardening, after homesteading, and after living this more self-sufficient lifestyle, you realize that we need to be community reliant. And that was the impetus for us to start looking.
Oh, wow. So how has your family or your farm ministry now ministering to your community?
Well, when we first moved to our community, the goal for us has always been to be producers, not just consumers. And so we wanted to provide products that we weren't able to find ourselves. So for example, raw dairy is something that we really were looking for. No corn, no soy, no antibiotics, no any non-GMO. And because we couldn't find it ourselves, we were kind of placed in a position where we had to grow and start raising our own dairy cattle.
Okay.
So we now provide that not only for our family but for our community as well, and we provide raw dairy products like raw milk, yogurt, butter, and kefir.
And so for a home gardener, what would you suggest how they could maybe minister into their community with what they have?
I think just getting started with what you have and what you can grow. You don't need a farm. You don't need an acre even. We started off farming with a quarter acre in the Bay Area, in the city. And yet we're still able to grow an abundance of food that we ended up having our friends and family come and do a U-pick of our vegetables.
wow.
And we wanted the kids to be able to come, their children to be able to come. Because in the city, you just go to the grocery store and that's where you think your food comes from. but we wanted the kids to be able to connect with the land and harvest themselves. I wanted them to snip off the okra and see the oozing of the liquid of the okra to see, wow, this is what fresh okra looks like and tastes like.
How can we be more mindful?
I think as Christians, the first thing is taking that step and saying grace and realizing the hands that have, all the hands that have come together to prepare the food before you. From the person who planted the seed, to the person who weeded it, to the person who harvested it, the person who cooked it. It might have been yourself, but to have gratitude for that and realizing that this meal took months to get to the table. And sometimes you're right, we live such a busy and rushed lifestyle, but it's in those moments where if you take 30 seconds to be mindful, be grateful of where our food comes from, and to be mindful about, wow, this is incredible. I think that is going to be really crucial to those to really slow down and give appreciation to where our food comes from.
Yeah, that's very good.
I talked about my grandfather having that saying, eat to live, do not live to eat.
I wrote it down.
And it really is about understanding that food is medicine. So we should be, everything that we're putting into our bodies is either harming us or it's healing us. And that's why it's not just as simple as, oh, well, food is food. Well, what is that food? And what are the benefits that we're getting from it? Or what harmful toxins are we getting from it? And I think it's not such, for me, it's less important to be fit than it is to be nourished.
Very good. I like that.
The book is called The Nourishing Asian Kitchen, and it is all our family's recipes on cooking and eating nourishing food, the way that God intended us to eat and the way that God intended us to live. So we do a lot of broths and fermentation, so kimchis and healing broths that you could use postpartum, or even if you're sick, or just for normal nourishment day to day. We have offal recipes, so hearts and chicken feet and beef liver and things like that. But the way that we've been eating as a culture, the way that I grew up eating, has always been more of the nose to tail nutrition. And I think a lot of people are starting to realize that Asian food has been nourishing, but didn't have really someone to give them that access to it. So I've been living this way for 40 years. I've grown up with my mom teaching me the ins and outs of eating a nourishing Asian diet, and I'm thrilled to be able to release this book, The Nourishing Asian Kitchen, with Chelsea Green Publishing Company.
Wonderful.